This episode of the Coarse podcast has been brought to you by Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, family-owned and operated screen printing and embroidery business located in a historic storefront on Old Berwick Road in the heart of Espy. They've been doing screen printing for over 20 years. They have high-quality product at a low price. Be sure to check them out. Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, 570-784-1212. Now, on to the show.
Hey, this is Wesley.
And this is Chaz.
And you're listening to our dad, Shawn Rosler, on the Coarse podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode number 136. What the hell are we doing here? Of the Coarse podcast, with you as always this evening, host creator Shawn Rosler. How's everyone doing tonight? So for anyone who recently did the whole July 4th thing, if you're anything like me, it's safe to say that your dietary choices might have missed the mark. Whether from an overabundance of smoked meat, brisket, an overindulgence in sweets, homemade mint cookie ice cream, or a drink tab that would make Keith Richards grin. Notice I said grin, not keep up with him. No one can do that. Well, this kind of a weekend can leave you feeling pretty gnarly in the gut. As such, it only made sense to feature a guest this evening who I recently ran into at a local farmer's market to help us all learn a little bit on how to make amends. How to offer up a mea culpa, if you will, via fermentation and focusing on that busy thoroughfare of said gut. Tonight's guest is a noted scientist in the field of gut health and fermented foods. She's incorporated her microbiology background with research and blended it with present-day health findings and the consequences of processed and refined foods causing problems from anxiety to physiological ailments. I still can't read. I'm still drunk from the weekend. Her diligent study of fermented foods evolved and led her to become a health coach in integrative nutrition, offering people alternative eating habits. Her goal is to make a difference in people's lives and for them to feel their best, as well as being a supportive mentor and a passionate wellness authority through the food we eat. Featured on a number of local media outlets, her goal as a health coach is to make a difference in people's lives and feeling their best in being a supportive mentor and wellness authority through the food we eat. She shares over 20 different types of fermented foods, most notably kimchi, a superfood for gut health, via her 2017 startup, Fermented Delights and Products. From Kraut to kimchi to kvass and beyond, that's a lot of Ks. Tonight's guest shows there's much to be learned on the gut health front, and I'm ready to learn, and God knows I freaking need it. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, the scientific mind behind Fermented Delights and Products, Tammy Brill. Tammy.
Hello.
Tammy,
Hello.
I need you. Help me. Help me.
Help you.
I'm fat and bloated, and it's awful.
Well, I'm drinking some beet kvass right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now, too. Oh, it's beer. Somebody switched it out on me. Son of a bitch. Not again. So, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Folks new to the program, folks with terrible short-term memories like myself, especially after this weekend. Starters, mains, and afters. Starters, we're going to talk about where the guest in question came from. Mains, we're going to talk about what they're doing today. And afters, a little bit more irreverent, a little bit more off-the-cuff questions. But no one's been injured in 135 episodes. Can you believe it? So without further ado, let's talk to Tammy Brill and find out where and what you grew up eating. Now, obviously, you don't have the traditional route that we typically hear on the show from, childhood to being a chef. You're a little different. And we're going to get into that because I want to hear about that. But first off, before we touch on any of that, where and what did you grow up eating?
Food that my parents thought were healthy.
Such as?
Margarine.
Oh, one polymer away from plastic.
Pierogi, sugar, carbohydrates, everything that we froze when we took from the farmers, the corn, and we would shuck it. It was covered in margarine, Crisco.
Yeah.
We thought at that time, I'm 56 years old, And that lifestyle, nobody knew anything back then about health. So we just pretty much ate, a McDonald's hamburger, a Burger King, fast food, French fries, broccoli covered in margarine.
Right.
Yeah. So my eating lifestyle has evolved because as a college student, I was at the gingerbread man, skipping my classes, drinking beer, and going for that pizza, going for the fried chicken. And I look back, and when I graduated from college, my uncle said to me, looks like you put on some pounds there. And I thought, boy, how rude.
Yeah,
and I look back at my pictures, the party days when we're smoking pretzels. I have a picture of me smoking a pretzel. I have no idea why. That's how drunk I used to be.
It's kind of awesome, I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of in awe.
I look back at my pictures and, I just thought I was invincible with the food that I ate. And then I became interested in pickling and canning. So, the grandparents did pickling and canning. And I learned how to make a lot of food. I had an Italian adopted grandmother that taught me how to make the semolina raviolis and the meatballs and all of that. But I didn't, it was good food. Yeah. But there was something missing.
Sure.
I was eating well.
Yeah.
I was always enjoying eating. And, of course, the drinking came along with it.
Yeah.
And you never really notice that what was happening. I'm leading up to something here because I thought I was invincible. I thought I could eat everything. I didn't even care. The weight thing bothered me. Of course, you went on every kind of diet. And I started getting, I remember waking up in my late 20s, like I couldn't get out of bed. My knees would be achy and my joints and all that. And, I have a predisposition for autoimmune issues with my family.
Gotcha.
And that's the way you're going to be for the rest of your life. That's the aging process.
Mm-hmm.
And, here I am teaching college, and then we're at our college meetings eating bagels and cream cheese and sugar-laden coffee. And I at some point, my body just said, yo, stop it already. Yeah. I can't do this. Yeah. So I started doing a little bit of research just on my own, living the hectic lifestyle of working, trying to please everybody, eating, doing the 3 meals a day, and then the snacking and the mid-afternoon crashes to go get a coffee, and then I have to teach my 5 o'clock classes, and the coffee and a donut or a candy bar got me through. I still wasn't feeling well. And something was missing. Oh, I was taking supplements. Okay, supplements. And then I'm working out in the garden and all that. And I don't know exactly at what point in my life it really changed, except that I'm working out in the garden. I started growing my own food. Mm-hmm. And then I hurt my hand, and I couldn't move my thumb. It was locked. Mm-hmm. So this was about 50 years old. Mm-hmm. And I went to the doctor and he said, you have trigger finger. So it was a 5-minute, $6,000 surgery. But prior to that, you had to get blood work. Yeah. And you had to get an EKG. Mm-hmm. So this was all done on my lunch break. So I go in and I'm sitting on a chair waiting I chose the local instead of a systemic to be knocked out. Yeah. And he said to me, before we start the surgery, I have to tell you something. I looked at your EKG. He says, you're lucky you're getting a local. Because if you had a systemic, we couldn't do the surgery. He said, at some point in your life, you suffered a myocardial infarction. And I'm like, yeah, right.
Wow.
This was at 50 years old. that was a game changer for me.
No shit. And I mean, so this is it's safe to say at this point, like, you had no idea. You didn't have any kind of indicator that this happened before this procedure was done.
I was not in tune. In retrospect, now that I have changed my lifestyle and have taken my life into my own hands, and I'll tell you about what I'm doing to monitor my health. I look back at all that bad eating, the genetic predisposition that I had.
Mm-hmm.
He told me after he wasn't going to have me as a patient anymore until I went to see a cardiologist.
Right.
Made an appointment to see a cardiologist. They wanted all kinds of testing. I pretty much looked at him, gave him the finger, and I said, I can do this on my own. And that's when I somehow hit upon beet kvass. Because beet, I started just fermenting beets, and I learned about the nutrient aspects, and then I learned about probiotics. Okay. And I kind of feel like I have a multiple personality and persons in me, because I always loved my gardening, and I always loved my microbiology, and I always loved soil. Mm-hmm. I always wondered why I loved to play in my compost pile so much. I love the smell of my compost.
Yeah.
You know? And I love to plant, and I love to see everything grow and mix that soil. And then it's like, wow. It just, it's like,
happened.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so let's take that as kind of like, the flag in the sand. You're coming up with this margarine, pierogi, sugar, carbs, all through college. And I mean, we all roll through that. Let's be perfectly honest. If I think of the habits that I've, at least to some degree matured out of, we're doing okay. But you have this almost, for lack of a better term, non-religious come to Jesus moment. Here you are on this. And so this leads you then to that beet kvass. And I want to take a step out here. We in the intro we touch on, like, look, you're the one behind Fermented Delights. That was my first introduction into beet kvass. And it definitely flicked a couple switches that I didn't have on before, even with one bottle. Like, it really kind of caught me off guard. It was kind of like the first time I ever had kombucha, and I think the first time you're primed for it, like, your body's like, yo, give me anything that's going to help me get rid of it last night. Like, whatever you can do, help us out. The beet kvass, it definitely, like, and you said it at the point that I bought it from you, and I want to talk about how Fermented Delights came into being, and we will, I promise. But like you said, you're like, now careful, some people don't feel great, especially if it's their first, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of, in my head to you, I was like, whatever, come on, man, I've drank harder, it's fine. I'm going to tell you something, half of that bottle, and my body was going, what did you do to me? What did you do to me, you son of a bitch? And like, want it out. But then I had the other half, and it was like, whoa. Like, it lit some fires that weren't there. Or I don't know if lighting fires is the apt analogy, but it definitely did something. And so, here you are.
And I know what that something is.
I'd love to know, because, man alive.
It's a gut brain. Your gut was talking to your brain.
See, and that's...
There was a communication going on here, and this is what I want to try to get out to tell people. There's a gut-brain connection.
That's so funny, because I lift a good amount. With COVID happening, it's kind of hard to be in the gym as much as I want to be, but I'm very much a listener to my body. Like, if I feel a crave for something, I give it to my body. I don't necessarily stand in its way, because I'm like, you got so far deep in that set, your body's craving XYZ. And that voice is there. So I'm not crazy, right? Well, all right, I shouldn't give you such a loaded question. Right, I am crazy,
and
but...
you're craving.
Yeah.
What you're craving is how your gut, these organisms, this microbiome, these organisms in your gut are telling you, and there's a balance that's going on. And that's my job. A lot of people are unhealthy. And they have not that many organisms that are good in their body. They have these cravings. And tell me, what are you craving? Sugar?
It's funny. If I'm really deep into like a cardio session, it'll be just, it'll be sugar. It'll be like to replenish that. Like there's this savage like thirst almost. Sometimes on a big lift day, it'll be like, oh, hey, that whole 8-ounce bag of beef jerky looks delicious right now. Let me eat that. It's these very pointed, and they're definitely very pointed to, salinity, sweet, and that.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, that's the neurochemicals that are being produced. Mm-hmm. For instance, like sugar. Mm-hmm. Sugar is so addicting. There's microorganisms that are going to be telling you, I want sugar. And the biggest factor, I'm telling you, I've overcome a lot of hurdles at the farmers markets. I've had my fair share of people laughing at me. Mm-hmm. I started a trend and I kept with it. Mm-hmm. I made my healthy potato chips, which are my organic ginger carrot rounds. Mm-hmm. And I would pass out the samples, have a healthy potato chip, and people are thinking, your wife job.
No. And see, all right, okay.
I stuck with it, but there's a logic behind that. Because when you're stressed and all that, and we'll get back to how fermented delights actually came about, because
we'll get there sooner or later. Come on.
When you're stressed and your body you want to chew, and there's all physiological things happening in your body. You want something to crunch. Well, we're just primed all these years with commercialism and psychological bullshit. Eat Pringles, eat potato chips.
Yeah.
Well, it could be the potassium that you're craving, but psychologically it could be that crunch. And how, and they're just our brain is hijacked with all the chemicals in those potato chips that we want to eat more. And I'll tell you what, after you eat that whole bag, you feel like crap afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a fair estimate.
So you see, it's that feel-good moment. You're hijacked. It's what I call biological warfare, because our brains are hijacked, and we're going to the reptilian brain, our amygdala.
Yeah.
And then you act out, and then you have all your reactions, and you can't handle your emotions appropriately. So I stuck with it, and when I met up with Mary Dragon and Brad Hans, and Mary said she wanted to sell my ferments at her place, the ginger carrot rounds. She said, can you make them jalapeno ginger carrot rounds?
Of course you can.
Wow. And when we were in the kitchen, she would wait until they were done. Not hot enough. So we made a brand just for the barn called Dragon Hots. And I'll tell you, they're kick-ass hot.
Okay. So that's a perfect segue then. So you begin to see this need, and you begin to plug yourself in, and all of a sudden, 2017, pretty major health scare, some awareness, some connecting of the dots with shit that you love. All of a sudden, you have fermented delights. How did that happen?
Well, my job of 30 years working in a lab, and I was in a dead end job. I wasn't getting rewarded, and they say about females when they're in their midlife, looking for a change, and I just found that I didn't want to get out of bed every morning and go to work and be told, what are you going to do for your evaluation for next year? What are you going to do better? And I'm thinking, I'm 50, when did I start? I'm 56 now. Yeah. 50 years old. I don't need this anymore. So I took that plunge. And part of the myocardial infarction was stress and anxiety, and that's all that I grew up with all my life. And I said, you know what, this is it. I took my love for microbiology. I started reading, like in my spare time at work and all that. I started reading health books, and I thought, you know what? Microbiology and health, gut health. Bingo, there it was. I was actually I was experimenting in my kitchen. I love raw milk kefir, so I love raw milk. I'm a big raw milk advocate. And for science experiments, I designed my own microbiology labs for the kids. Instead of just giving them organisms to look at underneath the microscope, they would actually bring in the food and they would look at it underneath the microscope. And I would challenge them. They could bring their yogurt that they would love to eat from the cafeteria, and then they would look at my homemade kefir and look at the amount of organisms that would grow on there. And that's when I decided, I got to take this a step further. So I somehow kept getting these little emails about fermentative nutrition. And I'm thinking, okay, that's another sign there that I have a new mission in life. You have to, find a purpose in life, and then you're going to collide with destiny. And that's exactly what happened to me. I called this phone number, and I'm like, well, what's this integrative nutrition health coaching all about? And she told me, and I actually got a scholarship. Part of the scholarship was when we got our tuition paid, we had to give back to the community.
Nice.
And I thought, well, what am I going to do? So I said, well, let me see these farmers markets. I think we need to promote. I started. So this, as I said, it's all an evolution. So I'm doing my health coaching. I'm learning how to build a business. And I started a website, Health Evolution for Life, because that's what it was all about. But I said, you know what? In our demographic area, you just can't walk up to somebody and say, give me $600 and I'll change your life. They're going to look at like you're crazy, trying to get them on, beet kvass and that. So, or off their sugar craving. So I decided, well, let me try the beet kvass and just some dill and sauerkraut, the dill and caraway sauerkraut. I go to a Mountaintop Farmers Market, and I ran into Don Hess from Stillwater Dancing Hen Farms in Stillwater. And we ended up chatting. I told him my tale of woe, and he's like, yo, you got something here. Let's taste it. Nice. And then he started selling it. I mean, here I am just dabbling in my kitchen, and we're trial and error. And then it just evolved from there. It grew, and I started making more stuff. I had a friend who had a restaurant that was really into it, so we started working there. And then I started selling at some farmers markets, and of course then Forks Farm Market. I went to their first vendor meeting, and Columbia County Bread, Doug, we shared a tent there, and I was passing out some samples, and it just kind of went from there. I got all excited, and I just kept going with it. Of course, I took a lot of hits, because you can't just tell people here, like, this is different sauerkraut. There's something different. So I was making some homemade candy with organic stuff to entice people to come in to taste the fermented foods in those carrots.
Nice. But I mean, here's the thing. And here's how we can definitely tie, because, I don't know, maybe some listeners are like, oh, well, typically we're talking about chefs and making dishes and what's going on? This is exactly the culinary inspiration that happened before, and I'm going to name some movements. They're not all molecular gastronomy, the whole small plate concept. All of these concepts happen, and people are like, what? That doesn't make sense. And then people start to try it, and people start to love it. And there's where the culinary angle comes in on this, because unfortunately, it's not until they try it that they believe it. You could talk till you're blue in the face, and I know you probably have, Tammy. I mean, it's got to be a hard dance card to sell, and yet here you are doing it.
Well, during this time, something else happened. Like so many things, this whole, I found my purpose and I collided with destiny.
Mm-hmm.
It was back in, I think it was 2016, and we had one hell of a snowstorm and classes were canceled that day. And I don't usually watch a lot of TV.
Uh-huh.
And I turn on the TV and I am watching, you're going to love this, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm watching My Diet is Better Than Yours. It was this ABC thing. And I mean, it just, and I'm seeing this guy running around with a bacon, in a bacon costume. This gets better. Bear with me here.
Yeah, I'm listening.
This is good. And something just, when you just just do things spontaneously. And I watched that whole episode. Kurt Morgan was somebody who was my age, and he, I watched the way the guy that they had all these coaches and they did all these diets. And I'm like, yeah, right, with all these diets and everything. Let's see who's actually going. It just intrigued me because I was on my way to starting bettering myself, and I wanted to see what is this all about all these different food and all these different diets. And I thought, you know what? I'm looking as everybody was eating their bagels at the campus and everything. So I was still employed at the time. This is my last ditch effort, to try to get where I was working, everybody healthy and everything. But I emailed this person, and his name happens to be Abel James, the fat burning man. And I said, let's get a fun guest speaker at our campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, here's where I live. I told him my little, tale of woe, how everybody's unhealthy. And I wanted to try to get everybody on a health journey. And I think he's exactly what we need. And he and his wife, Allison, took a leap of faith, and they said, yeah, we'll come and we'll spend the day with you. And that's when I prepared bone broth, beet kvass, kombucha, all kinds of things, all my fermented sauerkrauts, and I fed them up there because, tight on budget and everything. Well, let me make my food and see what somebody who knows what real food is. He had a book called The Wild Diet. So there was a book signing there, and I thought he's going to tell me if my fermented foods, because he knew all about real food and eating well, is going to be, if he liked my idea and I could sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, absolutely. In fact, he invited me down to Texas to meet a group of cohorts with entrepreneurs with like-minded health and wellness people.
Beautiful.
I knew then, when I started talking about beet kvass, I met all the health gurus. So you are in with all the chefs and all those gurus.
Mm-hmm.
I met my dream people, and I have the seminars, the lectures, Dr. Perlmutter, I went down the second year.
Yeah.
And it was just phenomenal. And I listened, I say I have that phrase, listen to your heart.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Abel and Allison, saying, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And you were asking about, you wanted to know about what fermentation is.
Absolutely.
Well, that tied in with a person that I met at a get-together. I listen to all these health podcasts. Mm-hmm. These are all people that I met at Abel and Allison's party.
Yep.
And little get-together, and I was sucking it all in. I was like, here, picture me, picture this, and if you look at my picture, and in Texas, it's 120 degrees there.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure.
Fermentation goes back to the ancestral days, and it's an ancient method of food preservation. Mm-hmm. So here, now you gotta bear with me because this is a podcast. I'm just winging it all over the place.
Absolutely, go with it. Go nuts.
I met this guy that looked like a caveman, and he was really cute and hot, and I'm, they're just like, hi, I'm Tammy. I'm starting up my own fermentation business. What do you think? Trying to get people's ideas.
Yeah.
And he's there talking to me, and he's like, yeah, my name is John Durant, and he wrote this book called The Paleo Manifesto, and I'm like, oh my goodness, and he was actually on Stephen Colbert, and he was considered the modern day caveman. Mm-hmm. Well, his book, Paleo Manifesto, chapter 4, talks about fermented foods and Moses, the microbiologist, in the Bible. So this John he has a degree in history, and I thought, well, here's round 2. I'm going to get him to come and speak to my class, my microbiology class. And I learned so much from him as well about the paleo and the ancestral lifestyle. And I knew that I got to keep on going despite the odds of people making fun of me, saying, oh, you're not going to do this, you're going to kill people with your fermented foods and all that. People aren't going to like that. And I just stuck with it. And I just kind of felt like, like you're swimming out, like I'm swimming right here, and I just wanted to do these healthy swap outs, and I just kept persisting with people asking me, I just pass out samples. Oh, come on, try it. And then I came up with, the healthy food swap out.
Yeah, but and see right there again, here's another example of how people are like, oh, that's going to kill you. Oh, it's terrible for you. People always say that before they actually try it. Like, I'm going to go carnivore for a minute just because, Nick Solardas, the host of Meat Life, has been on the show before, and we talked about dry aging steaks. And, it first starts with a cute little 5 days. Then it becomes 10 days. Then it becomes this. Then it becomes that. And they're up to like 260 some odd goddamn days where they're like, oh, you can't do that. And then they cook it. And, around 200 it starts to get funky. But like, 100-day steak, all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, that's the pinnacle of quality. Well, you didn't know that until someone was brave enough to run with it and have it be good. And I think that's where you're at, Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And as all of this has evolved, I think I have turned back the clock on aging for myself. And when you said about short-term memory, mm-hmm. and when people start making all these comments, about aging and, this and that, and it's as you get older, that's not true. That's your gut talking to you that you're missing something to start with that communication between the gut and the brain. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. That absolutely 1,000% makes sense.
And I think I am so much sharper. I ditched the supplements anymore. I mean, I used to be an advocate for, I can't tell you how many probiotic supplements out there. And we'll get back to my love for soil and the compost pile. I mean, I don't need probiotics. I'm in the compost pile. I put that compost all over my face and all over my skin. I mean, we can even get into the skin microbiome. But I'm healthy. During COVID, what did you think I was doing? I was playing in my compost pile to keep all the bacteria from, they fought off any kind of virus I would have been exposed to. So I had actually, probably want to talk about my kimchi and how that came about. But yep. Speaking of COVID, if we go off on a little tangent, I was at the farmer's market this past Sunday, and I have people driving sometimes from the Shavertown, Scranton area to the mountaintop area, and she says, I needed your kimchi. She says, I ate 2 jars a week, and I swear that kept me from getting the COVID, from getting sick.
Well, it can definitely increase your body's immune response. I mean, again, there's people with predisposed conditions, not positions, age groups and so on and so forth, and it's definitely a super, super, big concern. But whatever you can do, wear masks, kids. But hey, why don't you focus on the inside as well as the outside? Yes. It's not a bad idea.
Exactly. And, I don't think I've seen any of that on public TV. And that's why I love loving now that we have the farmers markets that I'm talking to people that were on the front lines. I'm talking to nurses, and they tell us the horror stories, and I'm thinking, but yeah, they're exposed, but what are they eating from vending machines? And they're overworked and stressed. And, even if they ate just 1 teaspoon of my superfood kimchi, it could change that gut microbiome. And sometimes it could lessen the symptoms if you are exposed to it and you get it, which, hey, these viruses have been around for ages. Why are we suddenly just, acknowledging getting sick? It's because of our standard American diet, which the acronym is SAD, but true. And that's our body. A virus, listen, you're talking to a microbiologist here. A virus, it's not in its best interest to kill its host. What we're seeing is the cascade of health effects and the comorbidities from the predisposition and our diet. What's the first thing that went off the shelves when we had the lockdown?
Yeah.
Oreo cookies, Pringles potato chips,
yep,
and all the junk food.
Yep.
And now we're all let loose, in phases. And it's no surprise that there's going to be a rise because we were eating junk food. We weren't, well, except for those who were eating all my fermented foods, but the majority of people who couldn't, that didn't know about the health aspects, and hoping now that with the help of this podcast, people will know that, they need a lifestyle change so that you don't get sick. You can be proactive in your health. And one of them is eating fermented foods.
Yep. For
so,
sure.
Now you get the sunshine, you go out to the farmer's market, you're going to eat real food. And the reason why people stay away from this is because they have the bad microorganisms in their gut. And then when you introduce something healthy, you have that yuck factor.
All right, so this is getting back to the kvass. That hit me with it. and believe me, so here's the thing. I take great joy in that, actually. I'm not going to lie. People listening, you know me outside the show for the most part. Well, I don't know. I guess now a lot of people don't know me outside the show. Listen, I enjoy that effect because it means something's happening. I'm not talking I got a belt strap in the closet beating my back with it, but I do enjoy that kind of like, whoa, reaction. And that's exactly kind of what it was.
Well, when I tell people at the market, when I was giving away samples for the past 3 years, now we can't do it because of COVID, but either you like beets or you don't like beets. So are you a beet lover or you're not a beet lover?
Exactly. You have to draw that line. That's like, Jets and Sharks, Bloods and Crips.
And see, when you're drinking that, so it's either that factor, but when I ferment this, now I have pictures of, I buy nothing but the best, these organic beets. So you get the skins on because they're organic. You get the tops on because of the betaine for the enzymes. And what we're doing is we're taking the sugar. People say, "Oh, I eat enough beets," but see, the problem is tubers like sugar, like the red beets and the carrots have sugar in them. I'm turning the sugars with the lactobacilli that are on the beets and the beet skins. They're gobbling up all those sugars and turning them into a healthy elixir of lactic acid that your body needs to get rid of the toxins. So that beet kvass is not going to be sweet. No, and it's definitely not. Let's clear that up right now.
I'll admit, the first sip I took, I did kind of do one of those like double, triple takes. I went, oh, and I was back to it. And I'm like, okay, now I know what's going on. Cause like I'm a root veg lover. I love them. I make like, rutabaga, beet chips whenever I can. Like, cause I think they're good. I think a potato chip is a vessel to get whatever condiment you want put in your body, and mine happens to be hummus from time to time. So like, it's a vehicle. Let's be honest, kids.
Oh, I love kale chips. Oh, when I get the fresh kale from the farmers markets, there I am with duck fat from Blind Pig.
Exactly.
At Coarse, they sell the duck fat. I smother that with some Himalayan salt and crisp it up, and
Lights
there's
out.
my crunch.
Lights the hell out. I mean, that's exactly what it's about. So again, just to bring it back, so, we talked about Krauts, we talked about, kimchi, we talked about kvass, and this is all centered in Tammy's Fermented Delights and Products. And I know that they can find you out on Facebook. And I know you're at the local farmers market here, local to Bloomsburg. So whatever that is to you, that's great. Where else can they find what you're doing, Tammy? I know we mentioned a couple places here and there, and I love the fact that we've been so all over the place, because it's awesome, because I think it shows how exciting this can be. Where else can they find you?
To find me, to talk to me personally, I post on Facebook is the best way that people can communicate with me. Of course, there are people who don't have Facebook, so you can always call me to see where I'm at. But for now, Saturdays, every other Saturday, this coming Saturday, I will be at Forks Farm Market. Every Forks Farm Market, I will be there.
Let me plug Forks Farm Market too, just for a second, because Todd Hopkins is an angel sent from whatever God you believe in. I'm going to tell you why. My oldest and my youngest received therapy from her. And she is an absolute, I believe when I pass and I arrive, I'm praying I get the elevator up. I don't know. I've done some shit. But let's assume I go upward. I believe Todd Hopkins is going to be at the gate.
Yeah.
I really do. She's just so awesome. And their whole vibe there is really one of the best farmers markets I've ever been to in my life. Not just here. I've been out to Napa, Sonoma, all these different. Forks has it. Forks is it. So if you want to check out Tammy's stuff, be sure to go there. Where else locally beyond that, Tammy? Can they?
Then we started at the Bloomsburg Fairgrounds, opposite when there isn't a Forks Farm Market in the Bloomsburg area. I'll be at the Bloomsburg Fairgrounds,
which is where you and I met.
Yes, yes.
And it is. It's really great. I mean, because talk about a space to have something in. I'm glad to see them using it, to be honest.
Yes. Oh, and it's so beautiful. The history in that barn house. When you're at the Bloomsburg Fair with all the people, you never really get to appreciate all that antique farm.
Sure.
And I'll give a plug for Liam, who does the woodworking, and his family. They did all that antique farm stuff in there.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
So I got to know the history behind there. So that's where I'll be as well.
So you got the Farmers Market of Bloomsburg Fairgrounds. You've got the Forks Farm Market. What else is going on? Because I can't imagine you're just sitting that still.
No, Mountaintop on Sundays, the Crestwood School parking lot. And other people have asked me to do other markets, but I need to clone myself. But then it'll be the retail places on the weekdays that I'll be stocking up.
So speaking of retail places, Bloom Naturally. Hey. Yep. That's huge.
Shortly, we're working something out, but for now, my prime locations are where my kitchen is in the farmhouse, Shavertown, the Barn Nutrition and Fitness Center.
Gotcha.
There's a nice little refrigerator with my signage there, and that gets stocked regularly. Nice. Then I'm at the Land at Hillside Farms. So you can get some ice cream and you can get some healthy kimchi.
Yeah, well, one will offset the other.
Yeah, and then House of Nutrition. I owe it all to them because I was at the Dallas market 2 years ago, and Norma was the first one to say, "Can you sell retail?" And it's been love ever since there. I do sell my friends Becky and April and the Oaks family at Oaks Farm Market here in Drums. Nice. Right where I live. They sell my products. Amish Pantry, Soulshine in Mountaintop sells my products. Oh, and let's not forget Wild for Salmon.
Wild for Salmon, former guest of the show and guest of my 100th episode live, Steve Curian. Yeah, they're incredible in their own right.
Yes.
That is awesome.
I love their seafood, and that's when we did Home and Backyard. It was a February 22nd episode We did the Nova-style kimchi lettuce wraps.
Oh, my God. That sounds incredible.
I mean, that is, hey, I'm not a chef, but I know how to make healthy food. Then their Nova-style salmon, oh, man, it's to die for. You mix that, you put the kimchi on top of that, and you could eat that, and you won't even miss those potato chips.
So, I mean, I
think
think...
that's a healthy food.
Yeah, exactly. I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to say here is that eating healthy and eating right by your body, by your gut, by your biome that's going on, it's not that hard, but you've got to pay attention. I mean, shit, this is episode 136, kids. If you've been listening for 135 episodes, I've been saying cooking well isn't that hard. You know, you've just got to pay attention to what you're doing. It's no different. It's no different.
No, one of my best meals, probably sometimes I eat once a day because I got a lot going. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I love my coffee, and then I do my hiking with my dogs to get them their needs met. But I come home to Forks pastured eggs, and I will do them up in some butter in my cast iron pan. Sometimes I'll take some 10-mile mushrooms and chop them up and put them in there. And guess what I'm eating? Some form of kimchi or my curry kraut. And that sustains me for quite a while because it's quality protein.
That's awesome. Tammy's going to have broken toes by all the name dropping going on here. I love it. So, like, there's so many good places in the area. And, I mean,
that's
really...
That's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Isn't that it, though? Like, look around you. Look what's there. It's around you. It's surrounding you. So, I mean... You know,
we don't need to go to Walmart.
No, hell no.
You have your local farmers. We need to support them. They need to be supported, especially now. Is more important to take charge of your health. And what I'm plugging everybody because people don't know that they're out there.
You know,
people didn't even know that Forks existed, and there was followers of mine that I had to give them directions to come. And I said, "Look at all this the great meat products, pastured."
Yep. If you go into some of these places locally, and I know we've talked on the show about farm to table getting beat up and getting overused like crazy, but if you go into some local places like Blind Pig, Old Tioga, Forks Farm, here's the first thing you see that you don't see in a commercial restaurant. In a commercial restaurant, you don't see shit mentioned about where stuff comes from. Maybe if they want to be cutesy, maybe if they're trying to be that way, but the first thing that you see when you walk in any of those three establishments or farm markets is this long grocery list of here's who the hell matters in this local scene. Get there. It's crazy. And it's so awesome because it is such a selfless way to be. And I think that the lifestyle in general just represents that. So, I mean, nothing but success, clearly, for Fermented Delights and more. More to come on that. Tammy, let me ask you a couple of after questions, and I'll let you go. I am standing in your kitchen with you, fermenting. Not really. Whoa, I'm right behind you. What music am I listening to with you?
No music.
No
I
music.
Listen to podcasts and audiobooks on health so I can spread the word of health and sound smart to people when I'm out at the markets.
Any particular podcast you like to listen to, Tammy?
Well, I love the Coarse Grind. In fact, I had it.
Was that self-serving? I'm confused. All right, fine. All right, I'll let you go. I'm sure you listen to others, but I'm the one that matters. All right, here we go. You ready? Fictitious scenario. Go with me for a minute. Total theoretic. You're going to be stranded on a deserted island, and you can only take 3 foods or food type items with you. Food type items being like condiments, supplies, that kind of thing. They are an inexhaustible supply through the magic of the interwebs. Okay, sure. Yeah. Inexhaustible supply, but only 3. What would they be and why?
Coffee, honey, and raw butter.
Jesus Christ. Did she study up to this? I think she might have.
I did my homework.
Listen, this is bullshit. This isn't fair. All right, fine. She cheated on the test. I'm failing her. Yeah, see, 2 former teachers. We can do that. Okay, so obviously you know what's coming next, and it's truly one of the most like profound questions I love asking people, and it's based off of Melanie Denea's My Last Supper, which is a coffee table book. 50 famous chefs, the next course, 50 more. And she's got this written down. Do you realize Tammy's got this shit written down? She wrote her answers. She has it in front of her so she wouldn't forget it. I really believe this, and I think she'll be honest with me when I stop recording. Blah, 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 Melanie Denea descriptor. What would your last supper be, Tammy?
A seafood fest.
Nice. She knew. God, she prepared. Okay, give me more details on that though. Seafood fest.
I love lobster
Hell yeah.
but melted butter, seafood scallops with butter or with bacon, wrapped in bacon.
Nice.
I love raw oysters when you can get them. Not that I have to shuck them, but I would like the already shucked ones just to eat raw.
Well, you know what I would do for you? I would get Stephen Wright from episode 40, who is the captain of the Chatham Seafood Company, who they have the copyright on the Chatham oyster, the best oyster you'll ever have in your life.
Oh.
I'd get a bag of 100 for you, and you could just eat yourself to death.
Okay.
He's actually the guy in his cabin who taught me how to shuck an oyster. So I feel pretty honored.
I'm pretty pathetic.
No. It's truly it's a pain in the ass. I'm gonna be honest. Like if it didn't taste so good when you have good oysters, it wouldn't be worth it. But it's totally worth it. So, all right. So, and then finally to wrap it up, I don't know, Tammy, do you want to ask yourself the question since you did all the goddamn homework? What is food to you in a single word?
Well, that was a tough one because it was
sure.
actually 2 words. But
okay.
since the body has the capacity to heal itself, and I think I'm a testimonial to that because I didn't get to tell you, my heart, I have the heart I changed my heart. I may have a scar. I never went for all my testing. I got off on a tangent, but we educators have to allow for that.
We do, absolutely.
I figured, I have that chutzpah and I'm going to heal myself. And it was through my gut. That's hypocrisy. All diseases and everything begins in the gut. Mm-hmm. Therefore, food is medicine.
Wow.
You never had that.
Wow.
Food is love and food is, I forget, there were a couple other comments.
God, how many episodes did you listen to? You're like, maybe that's why I got a spike in viewership. I don't know. It's Tammy Brill.
Up to 27 now.
That's right. Wow. Oh God, she's kicking me in the nuts on the way out of the room. All right, fine.
I got a mind blower for you.
Go ahead.
I talked about you on Saturday, and you were talked about. Were your ears ringing?
Why? Oh my God, no.
I was told to ask you a question.
By whom?
A friend of yours. And the question or the name that I'm supposed to give you is talk to me or tell me about Mike Myers.
I've got a handful of people, but does she work at a certain tax place?
Yes. That's right.
You have no idea. You have no idea how many years I terrorized her. But I will tell you more about that when we wrap some of these beautiful plugs up. For Tammy Brill, Fermented Delights, and products, 570-751-4323. If you want to reach out to her directly, God, please do it. Like, you have no idea how knowledgeable this woman is and how much this can change your life. Food can change your life. Full stop. Check her out on Facebook. You know, her personally, Fermented Delights and Products, Shavertown, Landon Hills, Drums, Bloomsburg, beyond. She's all over the place, people. Bloom Naturally coming up. That's amazing. Like, that's like the Bloomsburg, like, big achievement. When you get there, you really made it. You're like, you're a heavy hitter now.
Honored. Not one, but two places.
I know, right? That's crazy. Oh, and Forks Farm Market and the Bloomsburg Fairground Farm Market. Like, listen, she's all over the place. You've got to check her out. And again, we're going to have all the linkage and everything up when the episode goes up. But God almighty, Tammy Brill, it has been beyond a pleasure. So thank you so much for being part of the show tonight.
I'm so glad that you asked me to be on this podcast.
Oh, I am flattered to hear you say that, and I'll pay you later. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 136 of the Coarse Ground Podcast. With me this evening, the scientifically minded and just so well-versed Tammy Brill in all things gut health. Be sure to check all of her offerings out on the Facebook and all the plugs that we mentioned before. Again, stay tuned to the channel. You're going to find out more. Our producer, as always this evening, has been Johnny Leland Robinson, a.k.a. the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out all his cinematic Pig's Feet happenings and beyond on the Book of Face. Next episode will be number 137. Stay tuned. Are you passing through central Pennsylvania and looking for one of the best dining experiences and craft brew menus around? Look no further. Turkey Hill Brewing Company and 991 Central Road in Bloomsburg, PA has everything you could ask for and then some. Service, food, beer together. Unbelievable. Be sure to check them out. Call them today for reservations. 570-387-8422. Call today.